Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we're looking at a life story that honestly, it feels more like some kind of spiritual thriller than a straightforward memoir.
It really does. Intense.
We're diving deep into a life just profoundly shaped by trauma, but also by this radical renunciation and an absolute, almost unbelievable commitment to ancient monastic rules.
hmm
Our main source here is the monk's own narrative, his personal account called A Monk's Journey from Darkness to Light.
Very evocative title.
It is. And look, this isn't going to be a general chat about philosophy. We're aiming for a really meticulous, comprehensive biography here. Our mission, really, is to piece together this entire account detail by detail. We don't want to leave anything out.
Right.
From the intense childhood suffering right through to the tiny, granular details of how he lives day to day according to this strict monastic code.
Yeah, the Vinaya.
Exactly. We really want to give you the full, unvarnished picture of the transformation that took this man from, well, extreme poverty and despair to the life of a fully ordained Buddhist monk.
And what makes this so compelling, I think, is how it serves as this modern living case study of just radical spiritual commitment. You can see his path is really governed by two core pillars from the Dhamma.
Okay.
First, there's Vairagya. That's this deep, unshakable dispassion, non-attachment to the world.
Right.
And second, it's his absolute non-negotiable adherence to the Vinaya, the whole code of monastic conduct.
A rule book,
The
essentially.
massive rule book, yes. And he frames his own life perfectly, doesn't he? He says, "My journey began from darkness to light, and it continues." He's almost living proof that extreme suffering can sometimes be the very thing that pushes someone to seek ultimate truth.
A catalyst.
A powerful one.
Okay, so let's start right at the beginning in what he himself calls the darkness of his early life. He was born around November 1991
That's right.
in a village called Dharmavaram, which is near Makurla in the Guntur district of India.
And what's really crucial to grasp, I think, is that his life didn't actually start out in poverty. Not at all. No. His father was a tailor, and apparently a very successful one. We're talking about someone who, back in the 1990s, owned 10 tailoring machines. 10.
Wow, that's significant.
It really is. And he was apparently earning up to 5,000 a day, which, for that time and place was a huge amount, almost luxurious. It put the family on really solid ground initially.
Okay, so a stable start, but then?
Well, then that solid foundation just completely crumbled. The absolute core of his early trauma seems to stem from addiction, specifically his father's alcohol addiction. The monk talks about watching this addiction just systematically destroy and corrupt a family. It's his words. They lost everything, the machines, the income, the stability. They spiraled really quickly into what he calls extreme poverty, the point where he says he finally saw what poverty is.
And the father.
Well, driven by the addiction, he started abandoning the family for months at a time, just disappearing, leaving them completely destitute.
That's devastating.
But it gets worse. The loss of wealth quickly became overshadowed by just profound physical and emotional tragedy. When the speaker was only 8 or 9 years old, this is incredibly difficult. He witnessed his father, severely drunk, attempt to burn his mother with kerosene.
Oh my God.
She clung to life for 3 days, but then she died from her injuries.
Witnessed this at 8 or 9.
Yes. And the detail he shares about his own reaction is just chilling. He says he entered a state of complete neutrality, a kind of profound shock that literally left him unable to cry.
Just numb.
Completely numb. The trauma was so intense, it fundamentally shut down his ability to process grief. He describes it as a deep emotional suppression that lasted for years. And after his mother died, his father just vanished. Gone.
Unimaginable. And the loss didn't stop there, did it?
No, not at all. It was relentless. It seemed to confirm for this young boy that life was just inherently treacherous, impermanent. Just a year after his mother's death, his older sister died.
To sister, too.
Illness. They'd been taken in by their maternal relatives after the mother's death, but she just couldn't adapt to that new environment. It sounds like it was quite unsupportive.
So mother gone, father gone, sister gone.
And more. By the time he was 10 or 11, he'd seen this horrifying parade of death. Cousins died, one apparently by suicide, others from diseases. It was just constant loss.
This concentration of trauma by age 11, it's hard to fathom. What happened with the relatives who took them in?
His maternal uncle's family did take him and his younger sister in, but he says they were clearly reluctant. They didn't really want to raise them or pay for their education. He felt this immense suffering, this difficulty. But interestingly, instead of becoming angry or resentful, he started to internalize it through the lens of karma.
Karma, so seeing it as his own past actions bearing fruit.
Kind of, yes. He described the dynamic as crushing. We couldn't leave, nor could we stay happily, just trapped in this difficult situation.
Yet somehow, despite all this intentional lack of support, he didn't give up academically.
No, quite the opposite. His resilience is remarkable. He recounts how the household lights would be switched off really early, sometimes 7 or 8 p.m., to save money, or perhaps just out of indifference.
So how did he study?
He went outside, he studied under streetlights, he was determined, and he never let his academic performance slip. He consistently stayed a first-class student.
Incredible dedication.
And that dedication paid off, in a way. It eventually earned him a scholarship for his diploma. It's clear he was determined not to let his circumstances dictate his potential, at least intellectually.
So this incredibly painful childhood becomes the bedrock for his later philosophy, doesn't it?
Absolutely. It's a direct result.
Well,
All this repeated, intense exposure to death, sudden, violent, just relentless loss, it became the foundation for his practice of
Moranasati, that's the contemplation of death.
Exactly. The mindfulness of death and impermanence. And for him, it wasn't just an abstract concept. He had this crystal clear intellectual realization stripped bare of any sentimentality. All loved ones have to go away one day, period.
And that realization shifted his focus.
Completely. It pivoted him away from just the raw trauma towards the underlying philosophical question. For whom is this affection, love, and attachment? Why even bother forming these bonds if they inevitably lead to suffering?
That's a stark conclusion for someone so young.
It is. And what's truly remarkable is how he turned this into an active strategy. It wasn't passive resignation. He made a conscious, deliberate decision to cultivate vairagya.
There's that word again, the dispassion.
Yes, profound dispassion, non-attachment. He intentionally chose to avoid forming close emotional relationships. His reasoning was twofold. To prevent future suffering for himself, certainly, but also to prevent causing suffering to others he might eventually leave behind.
So if he didn't get close, no one would suffer when he inevitably moved on or, pursued his path.
Precisely. It's a fascinating, almost cold logic born from extreme pain. And crucially, he reframes the suffering itself. He doesn't wish it away. He doesn't regret it.
He sees it as necessary.
Yes. He points to the Buddha's teaching that birth itself is suffering, and concludes that if he hadn't gone through that specific hardship, that level of intensity, the necessary vairagya, the dispassion required for the path, probably wouldn't have developed within him.
Wow. So he accepted it all as essential for his spiritual development.
He did. He saw the events of his childhood as having happened for his ultimate spiritual good, which is an extraordinary perspective.
But this didn't mean he immediately ran off to become a monk, right? There was hesitation.
Oh, yes. Significant hesitation. This is where you see the internal conflict really start to brew. Despite this growing dispassion, this intellectual clarity, the actual spiritual quest got postponed.
Why?
Responsibility. He felt this incredibly deep sense of responsibility towards his younger sister. She was, understandably, very fearful after everything they'd been through together.
Right.
So he made this conscious, binding promise to himself. His words were something like, I have a responsibility to show her a life and then go away from everyone.
Show her a life, meaning see her settled, married.
Exactly. The journey, his own path, had to wait until her future felt secure, until she was married.
So he's holding this intense internal drive for renunciation, but also this worldly duty.
Precisely. And this forced delay, combined with the sheer existential terror baked in from his upbringing, led to a really intense crisis, both spiritual and psychological.
How did that manifest?
He began to have serious suicidal thoughts. He was desperately questioning the whole point of existence. Why are we born? Why do something without knowing that? What is the point of all this struggle? Really fundamental, agonizing questions.
It's understandable given what he'd seen. And did he almost give in to a conventional life? I think you mentioned marriage.
Yes. Fascinatingly, he came incredibly close to embracing the very lay life, the Gahasta Jivana, that he fundamentally distrusted. Around age 22 or 23, there was immense pressure, societal, familial, and he actually got engaged. Almost went through with it.
Really? Why? Did he think it would solve things?
Perhaps. Maybe he thought it would somehow settle everything, resolve the internal turmoil, fulfill expectations. But at the very last minute, he called the wedding off.
Pulled back right at the end.
Right at the brink. That inner calling, that deep realization fueled by vairagya, it was just too strong to ignore. This last-minute rejection of the conventional path really highlights how deep his commitment already was, even subconsciously, to finding something absolute, something that ordinary life just couldn't offer.
And he must have faced huge fallout for canceling a wedding like that.
Oh, undoubtedly. Enormous social consequences.
Yeah.
But he was willing to endure that rather than commit to a life he knew deep down was fundamentally wrong for him. That tells you a lot about his resolve, even then.
Okay, so the aborted wedding marks a kind of point of no return. How did the formal spiritual path actually begin then?
Well, it finally took shape around age 23, and interestingly, it was catalyzed by a fairly mundane recommendation he had a former manager.
Right, you mentioned him earlier.
Yes, a Kerala family man who had apparently treated him with extraordinary kindness, almost like a father figure, which must have been significant given his own father's absence and actions.
Sure.
This manager suggested he attend a 10-day Vipassana meditation course. Now, the monk knew nothing about meditation at this point. He went purely on trust in this man who had shown him kindness.
So he just went along, basically.
Pretty much. And the
Yeah.
experience was, well, it was transformative. Psychologically and spiritually, all that suppressed trauma, the neutrality he'd walled himself up in since his mother's death, it finally had nowhere to hide.
The meditation brought it all up.
He described it vividly. Suppressed emotions, memories surfacing like a flood, and crucially, during that course, he cried. For the first time since he was that little boy watching his mother die.
Wow. A huge emotional release.
Monumental. And that clearing allowed for something else. By the 7th day of the course, he had a direct physical experience of anicca.
Anika. Impermanence again.
Yes, but this time, not just as an intellectual concept derived from loss. He felt it. A tangible bodily sensation of the constant change, the arising and passing away, inherent in all phenomena. This wasn't reading it in a book. It was knowing it in his bones.
And that experience was key.
Absolutely key. It gave him the deep, practical understanding of the practice. It confirmed for him viscerally that this path, this method, was real and effective.
So, after this profound experience, going back to his normal job must have been difficult.
Intolerable, apparently. He said it felt completely pointless, not what you were supposed to do. His priorities had undergone a seismic shift. He couldn't just go back to the mundane.
So what did he do?
He continued practicing Vipassana intensely, and he started serving at the meditation centers, dedicating himself to selfless service, seva. He believed this is the right way forward now.
But he still needed to support himself, presumably.
Well, yes, and interestingly, he made one last, very brief attempt to engage with the material world. He tried starting a business.
A business, after all that. Why?
His motive wasn't personal gain. He wasn't trying to get rich. His idea was to generate quick profits, specifically to fund his spiritual service, to support himself while serving at the centers.
Ah, okay. How did that go?
It failed completely. He lost his entire investment within about 6 months.
Oh, dear. Was he devastated?
Not at all. And this is the critical part. The failure, the loss of all that money, caused him zero distress. None. This complete lack of disturbance over a significant financial loss just cemented it for him. It proved his genuine detachment, his vairagya, and confirmed, yet again, his utter lack of suitability for lay life.
So the failure was actually a confirmation.
In a way, yes. It closed that door firmly. His search then shifted towards deeper practical knowledge. Following suggestions from others, he went to Rishikesh.
Rishikesh, the yoga capital.
Exactly. He went to study yoga and Vedanta philosophy at a Sivananda ashram, thinking perhaps this was the next step.
And what?
No. He actually faced quite significant disillusionment there. He felt that while the Hindi scriptures, the Vedas and Upanishads contained immense wisdom, they were, in his words, only for speaking.
Meaning
They lacked the practical, step-by-step, verifiable methodology for actually overcoming mental defilements, greed, hatred, delusion in the direct way that Vipassana had offered him. He needed the how-to, not just the what's.
So he appreciated the philosophy, but needed the technique.
Precisely. He realized he needed the system he could apply directly to purify his mind from the roots of the suffering he knew so intimately. He wasn't rejecting philosophy, but he needed something more. Functional, perhaps. More immediately applicable to achieve liberation.
Okay, so the search wasn't over yet. He needed something specific.
Exactly. He knew what he was looking for now. And that set the stage for the next and really the final major shift in his journey.
Right, so Rishikesh wasn't the final answer. What was the turning point then? The thing that led him to full ordination?
It happened while he was still in Rishikesh, actually. A chance meeting. He met a well-respected Vipassana teacher named Ram Swarup,
Okay.
and during their conversation, Ram Swarup happened to mention a specific forest monastery in Sri Lanka. He described it as a good, rigorous place for practice, Navayana Monastery.
Navayana Monastery, Sri Lanka. And that name just clicked for him.
Instantly, overwhelmingly. He describes it as an immediate, powerful inner conviction. No need for deliberation, no seeking second opinions. He just knew. He said he felt, this is my last stop, I must go here. A sense of destiny almost.
Wow. Just like that. But Sri Lanka, that costs money to get to. How did he manage that? He wasn't exactly flush with cash after the failed business.
No, he definitely wasn't. He lacked the funds entirely. But assistance appeared, seemingly right when needed. A retired bank manager named Upendra Sharma offered to pay for his ticket.
That's fortunate.
Very. But true to form, demonstrating that fierce independence and rejection of reliance we talked about, the monk accepted the money only on the strict condition that he would repay it.
Even for a plane ticket to pursue his ultimate goal, he insisted on repaying.
Yes, it highlights his spirit. He wasn't going to be beholden. So with that sorted, in 2017, he would have been around 25 or 26. Then he arrived at Navayana Forest Monastery in Sri Lanka.
And they just let him in.
He was granted what's called a temporary pabaja. That's the initial ordination, like becoming a novice monk. It's usually for a trial period, maybe 3 months, to test your commitment and suitability.
A trial run? How did it go?
It was the breakthrough. Those 3 months were exactly what he'd been searching for. The intensive, highly structured practice within that strict forest environment. It yielded results far beyond anything he'd experienced in his previous 2 years of more independent Vipassana practice.
So it was different from the Vipassana courses.
More intensive, more structured, perhaps deeper within the full framework of the Buddha's teachings. He described it as finally quenching his spiritual thirst. It quenched my thirst in a way, he said. He felt all the defilements within me were removed.
Really? Removed. That sounds profound.
It sounds like he had a profound purification experience. The path ahead became absolutely crystal clear to him. He felt he now understood directly the way to nibbana, total liberation from suffering.
So after that, the idea of going back to lay life must have been unthinkable.
Completely evaporated. The very thought became repulsive to him. He described lay life, Kasta Javana, as extremely restrictive, narrow, like suffocation. He realized his mind was now fundamentally incompatible with the demands, the compromises, the attachments of the ordinary world.
He was done with it.
Utterly. He then did this very deliberate, almost cold analysis of his situation. What was holding him back? Money, no desire for it. Marriage, no interest. Worldly pleasures, no attraction. He saw them all simply as seeds for future suffering.
And he even turned down a job, didn't you say?
Yes, to really underscore this rejection, he walked away from a very desirable, stable, central government job offer, which, particularly in India, represents huge security status. Everything he was now turning his back on.
That's a massive statement.
It is. His final conclusion was stark. There was nothing stopping me, and the only remaining obstacle was only my mind. Just that last flicker of hesitation or ingrained habit.
And having confronted that,
He made the commitment permanent. He decided to take full ordination, to become a bhikkhu, which means formally accepting the entire weight of the Vinaya, all 227 plus precepts.
and he did something symbolic then, didn't he?
Yes. To ensure there was absolutely no psychological backdoor, no possibility of retreat, he systematically destroyed all his academic certificates, wiped his past clean, and he emptied his bank accounts, burned the boats completely.
Wow.
He then obtained a residence visa for Sri Lanka, also in 2017, cementing his decision to stay and practice there.
Destroying the certificates, that's such a powerful image of vairagya in action, that total letting go.
It really is. And his advice, based on this experience, to anyone else considering such a path is emphatic. Don't postpone it. Don't wait. Delay just invites doubt. Attachments creep back in. If you've decided to go, go blindly, he says. Do not postpone it. It will keep being postponed. The commitment has to be absolute, immediate, no half measures.
So this absolute commitment, this burning of the boats, it's all based on a really clear philosophical distinction he makes, isn't it? Between two types of happiness.
Yes, he talks about this constantly. He contrasts Grihastha Sukham, which is lay happiness, with Bhikshu Sukham, monastic happiness. They're polar opposites in his view.
Okay, so Grihastha Sukham, lay happiness, what does that entail for him?
It's everything worldly. Wealth, land, cars, houses, jewelry, status, career success, relationships. All the things society tells us bring happiness. But he sees this kind of happiness as incredibly fragile, ephemeral. And worse, he calls it very weak, extremely dangerous.
Dangerous. Why dangerous?
Because it's fundamentally rooted in attachment. Attachment to things, to people, to status. And attachment, in Buddhist thought, inevitably leads to dukkha, suffering. When you lose what you're attached to or fear losing it, you suffer.
Right. Makes sense.
Plus, he argues, this worldly happiness requires constant competition, constant vigilance to protect what you have. It often forces moral compromises, leading to fear, anxiety, restlessness. He even offers this really quite chilling insight into lay relationships,
What's that?
which basically says worldly love is conditional. The love will disappear the moment you start doing things they don't like. Ouch.
That's blunt.
Very blunt. But it reflects his experience, perhaps. And he also argues it's practically impossible for a householder, a layperson, to maintain perfect morality amidst all these pressures and desires, which, in his view, leads towards negative future rebirths.
Okay, so that's lay happiness. Fragile, dangerous, rooted in attachment. What's the alternative? Bhikshu Sukham.
Monastic happiness. And this isn't about gaining things. It's about freedom from things. Freedom from the whole tangled web of desire, home, family, money, possessions. It's an internal state.
Freedom from, not freedom to.
Exactly. It's characterized by peace, calm, contentment. It's cultivated actively through developing the qualities of the Noble Eightfold Path, things like spreading loving kindness, metta, developing a passion, deepening concentration, samadhi.
And he thinks this happiness is better.
16 times
Yeah.
better, apparently. He makes this rather staggering claim that the calm, unburdened happiness of a monk who possesses essentially nothing is 16 times greater than the happiness of even a great emperor surrounded by luxury. It's about inner wealth versus outer wealth.
16 times. That's specific.
It's a traditional way of emphasizing the point, I think.
Yeah.
But the core idea is that true happiness comes from letting go, not from accumulating.
And how is this freedom, this Bhikshu Sukham, maintained?
Through discipline. Rigorous discipline. This is where the Vinaya Pitaka, the monastic code, comes in. You know, a lay Buddhist might follow 5 precepts, maybe 8 on special days. But a fully ordained monk, a bhikkhu, has to adhere to a minimum of 227 core precepts.
Minimum.
Minimum. When you factor in all the sub-rules, the detailed etiquette for interacting with lay people, with other monks, with the environment, it potentially expands to over 900 rules.
900.
It's incredibly detailed. And he is utterly convinced that the survival of the Buddha's teachings, the sasana, depends entirely on monks faithfully protecting and living by these rules.
Let's get into the specifics of these rules. What's the most challenging one, especially today? You mentioned money earlier.
The prohibition on handling money is probably the most radically countercultural rule in the modern world. A monk cannot accept money, cannot possess it, cannot even touch silver or gold. Ever. Full stop.
How seriously is that taken?
Deadly seriously. He recounts his own teacher quoting an ancient warning from the texts. It is literally better for a monk to take a knife and cut open his own stomach than to ask lay people for things out of desire. The reliance must be purely on unsolicited, freely offered generosity.
Wow. Okay, but monks still need things, right? They need to travel sometimes, get medicine. How does that work in a world run on money if they can't touch it?
This is where it gets complicated and, frankly, quite awkward sometimes. They use a system called the Kapiya system.
Kapiya.
Yes. Essentially, a lay supporter, a devotee, has to independently, this is key, identify the need and give money not to the monk, but to another layperson who acts as the monk's attendant or steward. This person is the Kapiya.
So the money goes to the attendant.
Correct. The Kapiya then manages those funds to procure the monk's actual necessities, arranging transport, buying medicine, maybe paying for repairs to a dwelling. But the rules around this are incredibly strict and precise. The monk absolutely cannot instruct the Kapiya to receive money from someone, nor can he direct a potential donor towards the Kapiya. He has to maintain complete separation from the financial transaction itself. He can't even hint.
That sounds incredibly difficult to navigate, almost designed to be impractical.
It is a monumental, practical, and ethical tightrope walk. It requires immense trust and understanding from the lay community. And the only things the Buddha explicitly permitted a monk to ask for, even in dire need, were strictly limited to 4 requisites.
Just 4 things. What are they?
A dwelling place, like a hut or monastery space, food, received as alms, robes, and medicine. Anything else, if asked for out of personal desire, is considered a serious breach of the Vinaya.
So no asking for books or travel funds or...
Not out of desire, no. If a layperson intuits the need and arranges it through the Kapiya, that's different. But the monk cannot initiate the request based on his own wanting.
And this strictness extends to really minute details, right? Like eating.
Oh, yes. He's adamant about the precise observance of Vikalabhojanam, the rule about not eating after midday. All food must be received and consumed before 12 p.m.
Okay.
But he goes further. He explains that after the meal, he must meticulously clean his teeth. Why? To ensure no tiny food particles remain trapped. Because if he were to later dislodge and swallow even a minuscule particle, technically, that could constitute eating after noon, violating the rule.
That level of mindfulness is incredible, down to residual food particles.
It shows the depth of commitment required. It's not just about the big rules. It's about cultivating constant awareness and restraint in every single action.
And he believes this whole way of life, this level of discipline, is best maintained away from society.
Yes, he's a strong advocate for forest dwelling. He philosophically maintains that the Buddhasasana, the teachings, truly endures only as long as monks live in relative seclusion, in forests or quiet places, adhering strictly to the Vinaya, away from the constant distractions and entanglements of towns and cities. He believes this is essential for maintaining the intensity of practice.
Right. And finally, on this point, while Vipassana got him started, he sees it as just the beginning.
Exactly. He's grateful for Vipassana, acknowledges its power, but he calls it merely a small well, a starting point. He stresses the absolute necessity for a serious practitioner to move beyond basic meditation techniques and delve deeply into studying the Tripitaka,
The scriptures.
the entire canon of Buddhist scriptures. He considers the Tripitaka to be the greatest teacher, providing the full context, the detailed map for achieving complete liberation. Vipassana opened the door, but the Tripitaka illuminates the entire path.
Okay, so he finds this ideal path, this intense practice in the forest monasteries of Sri Lanka. But then life throws a curveball, right? His health.
A major curveball. His strict adherence to the Vinaya and intense practice was suddenly dramatically challenged by his own body failing him. While in Sri Lanka, he developed really serious health issues.
What kind of issues?
Diabetes, high blood pressure, and, quite alarmingly, grade 2 fatty liver disease, which then progressed to early-stage liver cirrhosis.
Cirrhosis. That's incredibly serious.
Extremely serious. His condition became so chronic and problematic that his fellow monks apparently started calling him Nityarogi,
Which means
chronic patient, always sick.
he needed frequent hospital visits, which obviously interrupts the secluded, intensive practice he valued so much. His life, dedicated to non-attachment, was suddenly deeply entangled with the very physical, very demanding reality of a failing body.
So what prompted the return to India? Was it just the health crisis?
It seems to have been driven by two interconnected needs. Definitely the need for better or different medical care, but also a desire to teach. He had started a YouTube channel.
A YouTube channel, a forest monk.
Yes, specifically to share the Dhamma, the teachings, in his native language, Telugu. Part of his motivation, he mentions, was to challenge what he saw as the misrepresentation of Buddhist teachings by a prominent local Hindu Swamiji. He felt a need to present the pure Dhamma.
Okay, so teaching became a motivation.
And that public activity, the YouTube channel, led directly to an offer of support. A dedicated lay practitioner in India named Anjani Reddy saw his videos and offered help. Ah, the support network connection.
Exactly. Now, apparently his own teacher in Sri Lanka was quite reluctant to let monks leave the monastery environment. There had been past instances, it seems, where monks left and then disrobed, abandoned their vows.
Understandable caution.
Very. So Ajani Reddy's formal invitation, offering to provide care and support in India, served as the crucial catalyst. It provided the necessary permission and the logistical means for him to return. He arrived back in India in December 2020.
Right in the middle of the global pandemic.
Yes,
Yeah.
adding another layer of complexity.
And did he find the healing he needed in India?
He did, but interestingly, not through conventional heavy medication.
Yeah.
He ended up at a nature cure hospital in Hyderabad.
Nature cure. What did that involve?
Primarily a very specific, highly restrictive diet, drastically reduced oil, salt, and spices, an emphasis on things like millets and raw vegetables. And remarkably, this strict dietary regime normalized his liver function tests and his blood sugar levels within just 1 week.
1 week. From cirrhosis symptoms to normal.
That's what he reports. It was a powerful validation for him of the absolute necessity of dietary discipline, proving that direct link between consumption, health, and suffering. And throughout this challenging period, Anjani acted as his crucial support, his guardian, helping manage everything.
So, health-wise, a positive turn. But returning to India also brought other challenges, didn't it? Conflicts within the monastic community.
Yes, his transition back into the Indian Sangha, the monastic community, was far from smooth. It was actually fraught with conflict almost immediately.
What happened?
He recounts a pretty intense argument he had with a senior monk at one monastery. This senior monk wanted to summarily expel a novice monk, a samanera, apparently for some rule infraction.
And he disagreed.
Strongly, he argued for patience, for understanding. He viewed the novices not just as rule breakers, but as small children who needed guidance, education, and compassion, not immediate, harsh rejection. He advocated for a more nurturing approach.
That sounds reasonable. How was that received?
Not well, it seems. This stance, perhaps combined with his general forthrightness, quickly led to accusations. Some other monks accused him of trying to become the in charge of the monastery, of seeking power.
Was he?
He vehemently denied it. He explained he wasn't seeking personal control, but merely advocating for some kind of structured leadership to prevent the chaos that arises when everyone is in charge, and there's no clear direction or consistent application of rules.
But the accusation stuck.
It did. And the situation culminated quite painfully when another monk, someone he knew, went and reported him, perhaps misrepresented his actions to the abbot. This led to him receiving a severe scolding from the abbot.
Ouch. Betrayal from a fellow monk.
He felt that betrayal very deeply. It was a stark reminder, perhaps, that being part of a spiritual community doesn't automatically guarantee personal loyalty or even basic fairness.
Did these conflicts continue?
They seemed to follow him. Even after he left that particular monastery, he recounts this heartbreakingly small but significant incident. He needed just €250, a very small sum for a train ticket. And another monk, someone he knew quite well, refused to help him get the money arranged through a lay supporter or kapia. Just to refuse.
Refused even that small amount.
Yes. He reflected on this lack of basic practical support from fellow monastics as a very unfortunate thing. It highlighted the profound isolation that can sometimes accompany such radical discipline, even among those supposedly walking the same path.
And the difficulties with lay support, the kapia system, were probably worse in India.
Magnified, yes, especially given his specific health needs and strict dietary requirements. He found that lay devotees, often operating on worldly schedules and perhaps not fully understanding the absolute rigidity of the rules, would frequently forget to bring alms or deliver them after the strict 12 p.m. deadline.
Leaving him hungry.
Yes, leading to moments of genuine hunger and frustration, which must have been incredibly difficult, trying to maintain equanimity while your body is crying out for sustenance that was promised but didn't arrive, especially when you need specific foods for your health.
That reliance creates real vulnerability. Did he face other pressures from lay supporters?
He did, particularly around the content of his teachings. He mentions being in Kakinada, where local organizers pressured him to sort of spice up his Dhamma talk.
Dress him up how?
By including references to local politics or popular figures, like mentioning Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, presumably to draw a bigger, more engaged crowd.
In his reaction.
Absolute refusal. He stood his ground staunchly. He asserted that a monk's sole duty is to teach the pure, unadulterated Dhamma, the Buddha's teachings. He must never adapt or dilute the message simply to please an audience, gain popularity, or attract followers.
Principle over popularity.
Absolutely. And to kind of contextualize these struggles, the betrayals, the inconsistent support, the conditional nature of help he sometimes received, he shared a story.
A Jataka tale.
From the Buddha's past lives.
Exactly. The story of the Bodhisattva, reborn as a monkey who helps an ungrateful man, only to be betrayed by him later.
What was the message of that story for him? It served as a metaphor, illustrating the transient, often transactional, and sometimes treacherous nature of human help and relationships. He summarized the painful lesson, perhaps learned through repeated experience. There will always be those who will grasp your feet for their needs, and those who will cut off your feet once their needs are met. A rather bleak assessment of worldly interaction.
So despite all these challenges, the health crisis, the conflicts within the Sangha, the difficulties with lay support in India, his core purpose remains unchanged.
Completely untouched. His ultimate goal is still absolutely clear: achieving nibbana, reaching arahantship, full liberation from the cycle of suffering. He's very explicit that his primary purpose is self-purification. It's not about propaganda, not about converting people, not about building an organization.
Right.
He views all the worldly byproducts, gains, fame, reputation, what are called labha satkara, as nothing more than potential distractions. In fact, he sees them as inherently linked to dukkha, to suffering. They are traps.
So how does he deal with the praise or blame, the support or lack of it, that inevitably comes his way, especially with a YouTube channel?
Through the constant cultivation of equanimity, upekkha bhava, This is central. It means maintaining a balanced, non-reactive mind towards what are called the Ashtaloka Dhamma.
The 8 worldly conditions.
Exactly. Gain and loss, pleasure and pain, praise and blame, fame and disgrace. These 8 pairs constantly buffet us in life. His practice is to meet them all with the same steady, unwavering mind. He sees every challenge, every conflict, every instance of support or betrayal simply as a test.
A test of what?
A test of his patience, Shanti, and an opportunity to identify and root out any remaining inner defilements like aversion when blamed or attachment when praised.
He has an example for this, doesn't he? Another monk.
Yes, he holds up the powerful ancient example of Puna Bhikkhu. This was a monk renowned for his extreme equanimity. Puna famously volunteered to teach in a notoriously fierce and violent region.
Knowing the risks.
Fully knowing, the Buddha tested him, asking what he would do if the people abused him. Puna said he'd think they were gentle for not hitting him. What if they hit him? He'd think they were gentle for not using weapons. What if they used weapons? Gentle for not killing him. What if they killed him?
What then?
Puna replied that even then he would be grateful, as some monks seek means to end their lives, and here it was being offered without effort. He saw even death as just another condition, met with equanimity, a step towards liberation.
That's total surrender to the path.
It is, and that's the ideal this monk strives for. Complete acceptance, regardless of the external consequence.
And he even frames his return to India, the health issues forcing it, through a karmic lens.
He does. He speculates, quite humbly, that perhaps his health problems weren't just random misfortune. Maybe they were his karma ripening in a way that specifically brought him back to India at that precise time.
Why? For what purpose?
To teach the Dhamma via his YouTube channel, to potentially benefit those specific individuals in the Telugu-speaking world who were karmically ready, who had the predisposition, parami, to hear and understand the pure teachings he felt compelled to share. It connects his suffering to a potential benefit for others.
Interesting way to reframe it. On a practical level, then, how does he live now? What does his day-to-day look like pursuing this goal?
It requires intense solitude. His practice is heavily focused on long hours of walking meditation, kekamana. So he actively seeks out isolated places.
Like what? Caves?
Caves, yes, simple huts, Buddha huts,
Right.
sometimes vacant houses offered by lay supporters. He mentions currently moving between locations in Visakhapatnam, and looking for a suitably quiet, secluded place near Hyderabad. The key is minimizing external distraction.
Does he interact with people much?
Very little. He limits social engagement strictly to what is necessary according to the Vinaya, essentially receiving his daily alms food or providing Dhamma teaching, but only when specifically invited by lay people. No casual socializing.
And for those lay people who do want to support him, he has some very clear guidelines, doesn't he? Almost demands.
Yes, strikingly clear, almost blunt guidance. He urges them, firstly, to offer support not out of pity, jolly, for his situation, but out of a genuine desire to generate spiritual merit, punyam, for themselves by supporting the Sangha. The motivation matters.
Okay, support out of merit, not pity. What else?
Clear communication and reliability. He stresses the absolute importance of lay supporters keeping their promises, especially regarding providing the daily alms food. He cites, quite pointedly, the suffering caused when expectations are set and then not met.
He has a story for this too, doesn't he?
Yes, the story of the old man and the blanket. A lay supporter promised an essential item, a blanket for the cold season, but then failed to deliver it, leaving the monk suffering from the cold unnecessarily due to the unfulfilled promise.
So broken promises cause real harm, even to a detached monk.
Exactly. It underscores that while the monk strives for detachment from desire, his physical existence, according to the Vinaya, is still deeply reliant on the honesty, reliability, and understanding of the lay community. It's a reciprocal relationship with clear responsibilities on both sides.
And finally, his overall stance towards life and death now.
It perfectly encapsulates his journey towards detachment. He states it very plainly. I do not have a strong desire to live, nor a desire to die.
Neither clinging to life nor wanting death.
Exactly. Complete equanimity towards both. His only stated concern is a practical one, that if he were to fall into a prolonged, debilitating illness, he hopes not to become a burden on anyone else. Even in sickness or death, the focus is on non-reliance and causing minimal trouble.
Hashtag tag outro.
What an incredible journey, following this monk's life from that absolute darkness, the addiction, the poverty, the violence, the betrayal, to the unwavering light of his monastic commitment. It really feels like witnessing a kind of radical spiritual alchemy. It really does. He took the raw, painful material of his early life and somehow forged it into this intense, focused, self-reliant commitment, destroying his certificates, turning away from everything. It's quite something.
It's a powerful testament to, well, to something profound.
And beyond just inspiration, his biography serves almost as a detailed technical manual. It shows the real-world, practical implications of trying to live by these ancient Vinaya rules with absolute strictness in the 21st century.
Especially the challenges in India.
Exactly. His experiences there really highlight the immense difficulties, logistical, interpersonal, of maintaining that level of purity.
Yeah.
The sheer impracticality and vulnerability created by the copia system, the constant testing by the conditional nature of human support, it's all laid bare.
He truly rejected wealth, status, relationships, comfort, all for this one single-minded purpose: freedom from suffering.
Which inevitably makes you reflect, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It forces us to internalize that level of commitment.
Yeah. So we'll leave you, our listeners, with this final thought, building on his journey. Considering everything this monk willingly sacrificed, let go of, turned away from for his specific path to freedom, what are you willing to let go of?
Not necessarily for monkhood, obviously, but for your own peace of mind. What attachments, what expectations, maybe even just the expectations of your own mind are you willing to sacrifice, knowing that perhaps the greatest struggle isn't the external world, but that internal landscape? What needs to be released for your freedom?